working. You're seeing, inflation coming down. It's
Another month rolls by, and another month where we see inflation continuing to come down.
I feel very lonely saying this, but I can't be too worried about inflation here and now. And one of the main...
When comparing inflation to recent years, people often say inflation is down or inflation is cooling. And yes, technically that's true. Inflation isn't at the peak it once was in 2022. It's still sitting around 2.9%. And here's the thing, inflation never actually goes away. The government doesn't want it to. It just slows down. And I think it's about to pick back up, sooner rather than later. In this video, I'll explain why I believe inflation is going to accelerate again and what I'm personally doing about it. Let me ask you this. In the last 100 years, how many times do you think we've experienced a period of major deflation? Twice. There have been small blips of deflation, but any extended period was the Great Depression in 1929 and the Great Recession in 2007. So it's safe to say our government doesn't like deflation. Our entire system is built on a consistent inflationary cycle. Because without it, the system collapses. Every year, the government spends more than it takes in from taxes. We hear it all the time, but no one ever really, worries about it. The last time the US had a balanced budget was during Bill Clinton's administration. I'm almost 30 years old and I was in diapers. Today, we're spending at deficit levels not seen since World War II. And I mean, we had a world war to fight, so why are we spending now? We now spend more on interest payments than we do on our gigantic national defense budget. And there's no sign of that changing. Republicans like to talk about cutting spending when Democrats are in power, and then they conveniently forget when they're in power. So we know the government overspends, and they've been doing it for 25 plus years at this point. Where do they get the extra money? Well, they sell treasuries or T-bills or bonds, and anyone can buy them. Americans, you, me, when we invest in our 401k, hedge funds, big companies, foreign governments, all basically fund our overspending. And then the American government pays interest on it. But lately, that demand is falling. Turns out foreign countries don't like being tariffed into oblivion, and no one wants to buy a 4 to 5% treasury if they think inflation will outpace the return. One of the biggest turning points came in 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine. The US froze Russian dollar assets, and other countries took note. They thought, what happens if we anger the US? Will our dollar assets be frozen too? So that's the big reason why gold, silver, and Bitcoin have been surging. Other world banks have basically kind of been diversifying away from the American dollar. And then when there's less demand for treasuries, interest rates rise, which is the last thing the US government wants on its $37 trillion of debt. So when there is less demand for US government debt, the Federal Reserve steps in and buys the debt. They don't actually have lots of actual cash reserves, so they create it digitally. They have a fancy word for it, and it's called quantitative easing, which is basically another fancy word for money printing. Recently, the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, said that the Fed plans to start QE again.
in this framework. An ample supply of reserves ensures adequate liquidity in the banking system, and control of our policy rate is achieved through the setting of our administered rates, interest on reserve balances, and the overnight repurchase rate. Our long-stated plan is to stop balance sheet runoff when reserves are somewhat above the level we judge consistent with ample reserves conditions. We may approach that point in coming months, and we are closely monitoring a wide range of indicators to inform this decision. Normalizing the size of our balance sheet does not mean going back to the balance sheet we had before the pandemic.
That's why the wealth gap keeps widening. Inflation, otherwise known as the hidden tax, rewards those who own assets. The gap between the haves and the have-nots just keeps getting wider. So what can everyday people like you and me do about this? For me, it's simple. You have to own assets. There's literally no other choice. If you don't own assets, you're going to be left behind. It's honestly kind of sad, but it's the reality we live in. But first, if you have any high interest debt, you should pay that off as fast as possible and build a small emergency fund before anything else. I don't agree with Dave Ramsey on everything, but that part is spot on. For those of you that care, I'm just some guy on YouTube. I will quickly share what I am personally doing, but first, I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for entertainment and informational purposes only. It's not financial advice. All content is based on my own personal opinions and experiences. Investing involves risks, and you should conduct your own research and consult with a licensed professional before making decisions if you wish to do so. Since I have no bad debt, I have my investing account set on auto buy every time I get paid. The backbone of my investments is SCHD, not a huge growth fund, but consistent dividends and stability. I also buy VT, which is just total world market exposure. Most of it, though, is the US stock market. And then I'll buy individually Bitcoin, Amazon, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and Lennar. That's what I'm doing currently right now, October 19th, 2025. I change my allocations all the time. Right now, I'm more defensive. I switched from more aggression and growth oriented to more defense and balanced. But that's just me. I'm more balanced, I would say. I'm still holding tech and growth stocks. I'm just not adding to them right now going forward, at least right now. I do have one high risk play, and that's Joby. It would be cool if flying cars could be a thing in the future, but again, beware of, they could go bankrupt. They're not even profitable. I'm also aggressively paying down my 5.99 rate mortgage and hopes to refinance it at a lower rate soon. It doesn't matter how small you start. If you're debt free, start investing. It doesn't matter what amount, like seriously, or you're going to be left behind. There will be market dips and crashes, but if you just keep buying with a long-term mindset, you'll likely be fine. Remember, always do your research. Investing involves risks, and you can lose money. I'm just a guy on the internet, but in my opinion, it's riskier to not invest at all, because the hidden tax of inflation will keep eating away at your savings and just widening the wealth gap. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know in the comments what you're doing with your investments in today's economy. But the funny thing is they don't actually have any... Cut that shit. Investing involves risk. Investing involves risks. You will